I want to tell you the stories of three people. First, the story of John. John was ordained long ago in 1810 at Baker's Creek Presbyterian Church. After many years of training at Greenville College and years of pastoral experience, John faithfully served a Presbyterian church in Philadelphia until he died in 1822. I also want to tell you the story of Katie. Katie was born and raised near here in Kannapolis, North Carolina. She earned degrees from Barba Scotia College, Johnson C. Smith Theological Seminary, and Union Theological Seminary in New York. She had a long career primarily as a professor, teaching ethics to future pastors. Katie died in August of 2018. And finally, the story of Herbert. Herbert also got a degree from Johnson C. Smith, both from the college and the seminary, before he went to Louisville Seminary. He served as a pastor of St. James Presbyterian Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. He also began Liberation Community Church in Memphis, Tennessee. He served the PCUSA as the director of the Office of Public Witness in Washington, D.C., and he continues to serve our denomination to this day. These three people, John, Katie, and Herbert, have served God at various times throughout history. They have preached the good news. They have lived up to Jesus' call to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth. In today's section of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives his disciples a tangible description of their purpose in this world, their why in this world. He tells his people, his followers, that they are salt and light, light of the world, salt of the earth. This is their why. So what does this mean? What does it mean to be salt and light? Jesus teaches that discipleship is like reflecting light, reflecting God's light. In his example, a light sits on a lampstand and illumines a house. The purpose the light plays is to drive away the shadows, to make the room visible, to reveal that which is hidden. Followers of Christ act as a light on a lampstand. Their light is a reflection of God's light, and they shine that light into the world around them to chase away the shadows of the world, to illuminate evil that it might lose its power and its grip, to expose injustice that it might be rooted out. Disciples reflect God's light so that sin and evil can be seen, recognized for what it is, brought out into the light and dealt with. We, friends, are light when we call out and expose what is wrong in the world, when we refuse to ignore sin and its effects. We are a light when we call out injustice in the world and work to end it, when we right wrongs done by others or ourselves, when we bring compassion into moments of despair, death, or destruction. Light is interesting because it does not exist to be seen. It exists to help see. Light exists to illuminate other things. The lamp is not put on the lampstand to be looked at or observed. The lamp is put on the lampstand so that the room can be seen. Even though that's the case, we know that light can be seen. Jesus mentions the city on a hill that cannot be hid. Even if the works that we do to illuminate the world around us, that light is seen. We, the disciples of Christ, Do not live and do God's work in order to be seen, though. We do not do God's work to have our accomplishments celebrated or to be praised. We shine light so that others can be seen, so that the ignored, the forgotten, the downtrodden, and the lost can be found. We exist to be of benefit for those in the world around us. Now, when we talk about the salt of the earth, I think that we mean something a little bit different than Jesus does. We have a cultural understanding of this phrase, salt of the earth. When you hear Jesus say, "You are salt of the earth," he's not telling you it's okay to be salty, okay? He's not giving you permission to have an ill temper or bad disposition. When you hear the phrase salt of the earth, I want you to think of somebody you know who embodies that phrase, salt of the earth. As in, that person is salt of the earth. Don't tell me who you're picturing. I'm still not sure if this is a compliment or not. I'm not sure. It sounds a little bit like a backhanded insult. You might be thinking of someone who is simply kind. Someone who is down to earth, salt of the earth. A regular old down to earth, nice person. Now that's great, but that's not what Jesus is talking about. Think about why we use salt. For Jesus, salt was used for other things, like preserving food or as an ingredient in sacrificial worship. But of course, its primary use is seasoning. Salt has an amazing power. Those who cook and those who bake know if you add the right amount of salt at the right time in the cooking process, it does not overpower the food or hijack the food's taste. It brings out the natural flavor of the food. It makes it more vibrant, recognizable, more tasty. This is what Jesus is talking about when he calls his followers salt of the earth. Jesus is telling his disciples that they bring vibrancy to the world. They add brilliance to the world. They take a bland creation and bring out that which is good. It might be helpful to change up the language a little bit from salt of the earth because of our understanding of it. Something you may or may not know about me, I'm a baker. I like to bake. Now, I'm not a good cook. I can't throw this and that in a pot and know that it will taste good. That's what Claire does. But I can follow some instructions like a boss. This is why I love making cookies. I follow instructions and I get cookies, and it's fantastic. Now, I cannot compete with Skeet's chocolate chip cookies, so my favorite cookies to make are these ginger molasses cookies. I got the recipe from my great Aunt Jo. This isn't one of those recipes that I'm taking to the grave, so if you want it, you can have it. In these cookies, the primary flavors you can taste are the molasses and the ginger. But the cookies also have other spices in them. They have cinnamon, and they have a bit of ground cloves. Ground cloves is one of my favorite spices. It's warm, and it's rich, and it's vibrant. Used in the right amount, it's not overpowering. It brightens the other flavors. What is your favorite spice, those of you who have a favorite spice? What do you like to use to bring out other flavors? Claire loves rosemary. She can find an excuse to put it in almost anything, up to and including ice cream. Spices that brighten the food in which they are put are the kind of spices Jesus talks about. When Jesus tells his disciples that they are salt, he's telling them that they are responsible for bringing out that which is good in the world. Like salt or ground cloves or rosemary, discipleship is about bringing goodness into the world with the right amount of grace and mercy and kindness. We are salt when we initiate moments of grace, when we extend compassion to those who mourn, when we share our hope with the world around us. We bring flavor to the world. We act as salt for the earth when we, in small and big ways, change the world for the better. These are the two callings which Jesus gives us for bringing the gospel into the world. Two ways to change the world for the better. Be the light of the world by shining light, by calling out evil and injustice wherever and whenever it takes over, by doing justice. Be the salt of the earth by elevating goodness, by being for and with one another and valuing one another, by rejecting the narrative that some people are more important than others, by passionately practicing kindness. John and Katie and Herbert were all salt and light. There's something more that you should know about each of them. John Gloucester was born in 1776. He was born with the name Jack because he was born as an enslaved person in Tennessee. He was freed in the early 1800s and went on to be the first African-American man ordained in the Presbyterian Church. This all happened over 50 years before slavery was ended, and over 150 years before the Civil Rights Act. By his life, his God-given gifts, and his ministry, John shone a light on the evils of the institution of slavery. He brought goodness into the lives of God's people in Philadelphia who needed a place of worship. Katie Cannon was one of my seminary professors and was the first African-American woman ordained in the Presbyterian Church in 1974. She was ordained by Catawba Presbytery, one of the two forerunners of our presbytery. She spent her years of ministry teaching future pastors in the field of ethics. She was a foundational and leading voice in the womanist movement, which lifts up the concerns and achievements of African-American women and scholars. Katie Cannon helped found the Center for Womenist Studies. She believed that the world has much to learn from the moral wisdom found in the everyday lives of Black women. She spent her career speaking simple, clear, gut-wrenching truths, shining a light onto those whose voices had been rejected, denied, or ignored. She spent her career giving an understanding laugh and a pat on the back to her struggling students, being salt of the earth. J. Herbert Nelson is currently serving as the first African-American stated clerk of the PCUSA. When he led the denomination's Office of Public Witness in Washington, D.C., he tirelessly worked to speak truth in our nation's halls of power. He was arrested for standing up for the poor and neglected, shining light on those who live in the shadow of poverty. And I have never known J. Herbert to turn down a chance to preach at Montreat Youth Conference. He always takes the opportunity to speak directly to the youth of our denomination. Light of the world, salt of the earth. These three people are shining examples of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. Friends, the need for light and salt is there. Our world needs us to shine God's light. Over 2 million people are behind bars in the United States. We need to shine light. There is enough food and water and shelter, but so many people don't have them. We need to shine light. Our leaders tell us to hate our enemies instead of loving them, to ignore the cries of the poor and the forgotten, to tear up the words of those with whom we disagree. We need to shine light. Our world needs us to be salt for the earth. Loss is a part of daily life. That loved one died. That diagnosis came. That job is gone. We need to be salt. Joys go unacknowledged and uncelebrated. We need to be salt. For so many people, a moment of compassion could make all the difference in the world. We need to be salt. How will you be a light for the world? How will you be salt for the earth? Friends, the need is out there. Go shine God's light. Go be salty. Amen.